The second Donald Trump stormed onto the Jimmy Kimmel live stage, chest puffed out and that smug grin plastered across his face, he thought he was walking into another easy victory lap. Until Jimmy Kimmel sat back with a quiet smile, let the loudest man in the room hang himself with his own words, and then ripped the stable genius mask clean off in front of a stunned audience that went from cheering to laughing at him in real time. The show was supposed to be a straightforward interview about leadership, decision making, and the heavy responsibilities that come with holding the highest office in the country. But the tension was already thick in the air before Donald Trump even stepped on stage. Trump walked out, shoulders squared like he owned the place, chin up high, that familiar smirk already locked in place. The audience exploded with applause, some cheering loud, others clapping politely, but loud enough to fill the room. Trump barely let the host finish the first question before he steered everything straight toward himself. Yeah, leadership is important, he said, voice booming with that signature certainty. But let me tell you something. I have one of the great minds in the history of this country. Stable genius. Everybody knows it. He didn't even pause to let the words land. He jumped right into his favorite story, the one he always pulls out when things get tight. I took that cognitive test and I aced it. Perfect score. Doctors were shocked. They said, "Sir, nobody's ever done better." Other presidents, they wouldn't even take it. Too scared, but I did it and I crushed it. Nobody else could have done what I did. He kept going, chest puffed out, listing every detail like he was reading from a trophy case. How the test proved his memory was sharp, how his thinking was faster and clearer than anyone else in politics. The crowd clapped along in places the way they always did when he hit those familiar notes. But you could already sense a little shift in the room, like people were waiting to see where this was really headed. Then, without any warning, Trump pushed his chair back and stood up fast. He raised both arms like he'd just won the Super Bowl, voice rising even louder. My brain is sharper than everybody in this room combined. I'm telling you, nobody here gets it. Not the media, not the critics, nobody. I'm operating on a whole different level. For a split second, the audience went completely quiet. You could hear a couple of nervous laughs. Then the clapping started again, louder this time, but mixed with low murmurs rippling through the seats. Some people exchanged quick glances, eyebrows raised like they weren't sure if they were supposed to cheer or feel uncomfortable. The energy felt electric, but there was a weird edge to it now, something unsettled underneath the noise. Jimmy Kimmel sat there with a small smile on his face, not jumping in, not cutting Trump off. He just nodded slowly, letting the moment breathe. He knew exactly what he was doing. The longer Trump kept pouring gas on his own fire, the clearer the pattern would get. So Kimmel stayed quiet, eyes steady, giving Trump all the rope he wanted. Trump kept rolling, repeating how brilliant he was, how unmatched his instincts were, how lucky the country was to have someone with his kind of mind in charge. Every sentence landed heavier than the last, like he was daring anyone to push back. Finally, Kimmel leaned forward just a little, voice calm and casual, like he was asking about the weather. You know, you just said you aced the test right after I asked about responsibility and leadership. Does that happen every time things get a little tough? You jump straight to how smart you are? Trump let out a big laugh, the kind that fills the whole room, head tilted back like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Trump laughed louder and jumped straight back into his comfort zone. Look, I have the highest IQ of anybody who's ever run for this office. Everybody knows it. The fake news media are low IQ people. They don't get it. They've never gotten it. He waved his hand like he was brushing away flies, completely steering the conversation away from leadership or responsibility and straight into his usual attack on the press. Kimmel stayed calm, not raising his voice at all. He leaned in slightly and asked a simple, direct question about policy. Mr. President, can you tell us what your plan actually was on that specific issue? Trump's face changed. The smile dropped for a second, and instead of answering, he turned and pointed right at Kimmel. Your ratings are terrible, Jimmy. Terrible. You should have been fired a long time ago. Nobody watches this show anymore. It's sad, really. Very sad. His voice got sharper, the words coming fast and personal, like he was trying to put Kimmel on the defensive instead of dealing with the actual question. Then things got louder. Trump stood up halfway out of his chair, jabbing his finger toward the camera. Jimmy doesn't understand my brain. He can't even comprehend what I'm saying. Nobody in this room gets how sharp I am. His voice boomed through the studio, echoing off the walls. The audience started murmuring loudly now, some shifting in their seats, others whispering to the person next to them. You could feel the tension rising. A few people looked uncomfortable, like they were watching something start to unravel right in front of them. Kimmel just sat there, hands folded, not fighting back, not interrupting. He let Trump keep digging. Trump tried to swing the mood back in his favor. He turned toward the crowd with a big grin and started telling one of his old stories. You know, I've won every debate I've ever been in. Every single one. The people love it. They say, Trump, you destroyed them. It's true. I've been doing this for years, and I always come out on top. He laughed like it was the funniest thing, trying to get the audience laughing with him, clapping along, pulling them back into his corner. Kimmel didn't laugh. He just gave a slow nod, his eyes steady on Trump the whole time. It was clear what he was doing. He was letting everyone see the timing. Every time a real question came up, Trump immediately went back to bragging about how smart he was or attacking whoever was in front of him. The pattern was starting to show, plain as day. And then, in less than 2 minutes, Trump said it again. I'm a stable genius. A very stable genius. He said it with the same proud tone, like it was brand new. But this time, the audience didn't react the same way. A few people clapped out of habit, but someone turning, eyebrows going up. Some folks in the back even whispered to each other. Kimmel finally leaned forward, his voice still calm but sharper now. He looked straight at Trump and said it plain. Every single time I ask you a straight question, you jump right back to I'm the smartest guy in the room. Are you dodging, Mr. President? Because it sure looks like it. Trump's face went red fast. He cut Kimmel off before the words were even finished. You're insulting me, Jimmy. That's what this is. An insult. He jabbed a finger in the air and launched into a long story. Let me tell you about my perfect memory. I was in a very important meeting, one of the biggest meetings with all the top people, and I remembered every single detail. Names, numbers, everything. Nobody else could keep up. My memory is perfect. Better than anybody's. I don't forget anything. That's why I'm so good at this. He kept talking, waving his hands, repeating how sharp his mind was, how nobody could match him in those high-pressure rooms. The audience listened, but the room felt tighter now, like people were waiting for something to break. Then Kimmel pressed a button. A short clip popped up on the big screen behind them. It was Trump from a few years back, standing at a podium, bragging about his memory just like tonight. But in the clip, he blanked on a simple fact he had just claimed he never forgot. He stumbled over the name, paused awkwardly, and tried to laugh it off. The audience gasped loud. Some people actually said, "Whoa!" out loud. A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the crowd. Heads turned, mouths opened. You could feel the energy flip in real time. The very thing Trump had just spent minutes boasting about was now playing right in front of everyone, showing the opposite. Trump stared at the screen, his mouth tightening. He pointed at it hard and shouted, "That's fake news. Totally fake. They edited that." His voice cracked just a little at the end, a slight shake that hadn't been there before. He tried to laugh it off, but it came out forced. The confidence was starting to slip. Kimmel didn't smile or joke around. He just looked at Trump and said quietly, You just used your own bragging about your perfect memory to dodge my second question tonight. The words landed heavy. The audience went quieter, the kind of quiet that feels loud. People shifted in their seats, some nodding slowly, others staring at Trump like they were seeing him differently for the first time. The air in the studio changed. It wasn't just laughs and cheers anymore. Trump sat back down, still trying to hold that big smile, but his eyes had that hard, uneasy look now. Trump was done playing nice. The moment Kimmel pushed back, he flipped the switch and went straight into attack mode, full force. His face tightened, and the words started flying out fast and sharp. Your ratings are terrible, Jimmy. Absolutely terrible. This show is dying, and everybody knows it. You're not funny anymore. You're not talented. The network should have fired you years ago. And let's be honest, that whole family bit you do, it's old. It's boring. Sad, really. Very sad. He didn't stop there. He kept hammering, bringing up old clips in his mind, mocking Kimmel's jokes, his guests, even throwing in cheap shots about his personal life and how nobody takes you seriously in this town. It was the full Trump barrage, personal, loud, and meant to hurt. Kimmel didn't back down or try to defend himself. He sat there steady, eyes locked on Trump, and when there was a small opening, he spoke clearly and without raising his voice. In just the last 5 minutes, you've used the words low IQ 3 different times. Once against the media, once against your critics, and now you're circling back to it with me. That's not answering questions. That's the same move every single time. The second those words left Kimmel's mouth, Trump exploded out of his chair. He stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly on the floor. His face turned bright red, veins showing on his neck. "You're trapping me!" he shouted, pointing his finger right at Kimmel's face. "This is a trap. You're setting me up. You think you're smart with these little games? You're not. You're just trying to make me look bad because you can't handle the truth." His voice cracked with anger, echoing through the studio like thunder. The audience could feel the heat rising. For a moment, the entire room went completely silent. No laughs, no claps. Just dead quiet while Trump stood there breathing heavy. Then, slowly at first, a few people in the middle started clapping for Kimmel. The applause grew, spreading to the sides and then the back rows. It wasn't wild cheering yet, but it was real support. People nodding, some even whistling softly. You could see the shift happening live. Parts of the crowd were turning on Trump, giving their approval to the guy who was calmly calling out the bullshit. Trump's eyes darted around the audience, scanning faces. He realized right then that the room wasn't fully his anymore. The energy he usually controlled so easily was slipping away, and it showed on his face. Trump tried desperately to grab it back. He stepped forward a little, chest puffed out, and pointed straight at Kimmel again. "I did things no other president would ever dare to do. I took the tough tests, made the hard calls, faced the biggest fights. Nobody else had the guts. You sit here every night cracking jokes. You could never do what I did. Never in a million years." Kimmel looked up at him, completely unfazed, and answered in that same steady tone. "I don't need to stand up and brag about how smart or brave I am. I just answer the question straight. That's it." The words landed like a slap. Trump stopped cold. He stood there frozen, mouth half open, staring at Kimmel. 3 long, painful seconds ticked by with absolute silence in the studio. No one shifted. Kimmel didn't waste any more time. He reached over, pressed a button, and the big screen behind them lit up with a clean, sharp timeline. It was all Trump's own words, pulled from different years and different interviews. The graphics were simple but deadly. Boast in big letters, followed by pivot, then attack, and finally distraction. Clips played one after another, Trump saying, "I'm a stable genius," then dodging a tough question, then attacking the reporter, then starting a whole new fight somewhere else. The pattern repeated over and over, year after year. The audience leaned forward, eyes glued to the screen. You could hear quiet gasps and murmurs spreading through the rows. Trump's eyes widened. He jumped up fast, face twisted with anger, and lunged toward the control side like he wanted to shut it down himself. "Turn that off," he yelled at the top of his lungs. "Turn it off right now. This is a hoax. This is a total setup. Fake news trying to trick people." His voice cracked with rage as he pointed wildly at the screen. "This is a lie. They're manipulating everything." Kimmel stayed completely calm, sitting back in his chair like nothing unusual was happening. He looked at Trump and asked in a steady, almost quiet voice, "Can you just stay with one single question for once? Just one. No changing the subject. No attacking me. Can you do that?" Trump dropped back into his chair hard, breathing heavy. But instead of answering, he launched into a wild new burst of bragging, even more frantic than before. "I aced it. I aced that test. I aced it perfectly. Nobody else could ace it like I did. I aced it. Doctors said it was unbelievable. I aced it. I aced it better than anybody in history." He repeated "I aced it" 6 times in a row, faster and louder each time, like saying it more would make it true. His hands were gesturing everywhere, eyes flashing. At first, a few people chuckled nervously, but the laughter died quickly. Soon the audience was just breathing out loud, long sighs spreading through the studio. Heads were shaking. Some people looked embarrassed for him. The energy had completely flipped. No more excited cheers, just a heavy, disappointed quiet as they watched the man who once dominated every room now spinning in circles on the same few words. Kimmel waited until Trump finally ran out of steam, then hit play on one last clip. It was Trump from years earlier, standing tall and saying clearly, "I don't need any cognitive test. I'm obviously sharp. I don't need to prove anything to anybody." The clip cut straight to a more recent one where Trump was proudly boasting, "I took the test and I aced it. Perfect score." The contradiction was right there, side by side. Impossible to miss. Trump stared at the screen, frozen. His mouth opened and closed a few times, but no words came out. He just sat there, eyes locked on his own. Past words contradicting his present ones. The color drained from his face a little. For once, the loudest man in the room had nothing to say. The entire studio felt like it had turned to stone. The air was thick and heavy. No one moved. No one whispered. This was the biggest moment of realization all night. People weren't just watching a late-night interview anymore. They were seeing the whole pattern laid bare, clear as day, with Trump caught right in the middle of it. Trump tried one last time to take back control. He turned toward the audience, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes anymore. "They're all jealous of me," he said, but his voice came out thinner than before, missing that usual booming power. "The media, the critics, everybody here, they're jealous because I'm winning and they're losing. That's all this is." He waved his hand like he was brushing the whole night away, but the words landed flat. A few of his loyal fans clapped, but most of the room stayed quiet. Kimmel leaned forward for the final question, his tone calm and direct. "One last thing, Mr. President. Can you give us a straight answer on this one issue without changing the subject or attacking anyone?" Trump didn't even try. He smirked and shot back immediately. "You're a loser, Jimmy. A total loser. That's why you do this every night, because you can't win at anything else." The audience burst out laughing, but this time it wasn't the friendly kind. It was loud, sharp laughter with a clear edge of mockery. People were pointing, shaking their heads, some even clapping while they laughed. The joke had flipped. Trump's insult didn't sting the way it used to. Instead, it made him look smaller, and the crowd could feel it. That laugh seemed to push Trump over the edge. He stood up suddenly, chair scraping loudly, and pointed straight at Kimmel one final time. "I am a genius," he shouted, voice cracking with effort. I'm a stable genius, and you are nothing. Absolutely nothing. He held the pose for a second, finger still jabbing the air, then dropped back into his seat hard, breathing heavy and fast. His chest rose and fell like he had just run a mile. The camera zoomed in close on his face, and for the first time all night, the exhaustion showed clearly. Sweat on his forehead, eyes tired, the big confident mask slipping away. He looked like a man who had finally run out of steam. Kimmel didn't raise his voice or pile on. He simply nodded once and said quietly but sharply, "Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for showing us the pattern so clearly tonight." The audience erupted into long, steady applause. It started in the front rows and rolled all the way to the back, growing louder and stronger. Some people stood up. Others whistled. The clapping went on for a good 20 seconds, filling the studio with a sound that felt final. It wasn't just polite applause anymore. It was recognition. They had seen it. The cycle, the boasts, the pivots, the attacks, the distractions. Everything had been laid out in plain sight. Trump sat there trying to keep his trademark smile for the cameras, waving weakly at the crowd like nothing had changed, but his eyes told a different story. They looked harder now, a little darker, a little more aware. He knew. He knew the audience had seen the machine working behind all the noise, the same moves, the same script, the same way of escaping every tough moment. The giant who had walked in with so much confidence now looked like a man who understood that something important had shifted tonight. The myth wasn't completely gone, but it had been cracked wide open and he couldn't uncrack it. The lights stayed bright as the applause slowly faded. Trump was still there, still talking, still trying to own the room. But for many people watching, both in the studio and at home, the way they heard him from now on would never be quite the same.